And with the first overall pick, the New York Islanders select John Tavares.
This moment was special for Islanders fans everywhere. They've now gotten the franchise-changing player who can make an impact and turn the team around. Like with any star player, fans and management hope to keep them around for the long haul, and that was the plan with John Tavares. Tavares would immediately burst out onto the scene in Long Island, becoming a star right away. In his rookie season, he would hit the 50-point plateau and never looked back, becoming a consistent 60 to 70 point producer, being named the team's captain, and taking the Isles to numerous postseason appearances, eventually helping the team win their first playoff series in over 20 years. Johnny T was loved by many, and everyone hoped that he would forever be an Islander, but then 2016 came and his contract was set to expire. All throughout the season, when being interviewed about the possibility of leaving the Islanders, Tavares stated numerous times,
obviously I want it to work out here. You know, I hope it all works out too, and I'm back as well. You know, I hope to be back. Hope things work out to stay.
And this calmed down fans at first, but with the team plummeting down the standings, people began to wonder if John would decide to stick around. And this is where things get interesting. Tavares assured management and the fans that he wanted to stick around, stating in an interview,
I mean, I haven't even thought about that.
Tavares would even tell management not to trade him. So, once again, the fans had hope, but all that soon vanished when July 1st came and it was announced that Tavares was going into free agency as an unrestricted free agent. Later that day, Tavares would announce via social media that he wasn't going to re-sign in Long Island. And shortly after, the announcement was made that John Tavares was set to become a Toronto Maple Leaf. Islanders fans were furious. They felt cheated, hurt, and lied to. They weren't used to their star players leaving, especially the way Tavares did. This would leave a bitter taste in Islanders fans' mouths, and they made sure to mark their calendars, as February 28th, 2019 would become known as the infamous Return to Long Island.
We should just let the fans call this, but there's a 2-on-1 coming. And Messi's in front. Big stop by Robert Leonard.
Nassau Coliseum turned into a madhouse. A parade of boos followed Tavares everywhere he went, jerseys were burned prior to puck drop, fans were holding up signs and were taunting Tavares the entire night, chanting things such as Barzell's better, and of course, we don't need you. The Islanders would win the game 6-1, proving the fans' point, and to this day, Tavares is still one of the most hated figures in Islanders history. It makes things even more awkward when listening to an old interview from the Andrew Walker Show, as after being asked what would be your favorite part of playing for Toronto 2 years from now, Tavares would respond with this.
I would not count on that, so.
Believe it or not, Tavares wasn't the only player to receive a rain of boos after betraying his former club, as another star player would leave his team entirely after signing a mega deal of his own. In 2012, Ilya Kovalchuk was in the middle of his prime. I was just inked 2 years prior to one of the biggest super deals in league history, a 15-year, $100 million deal. Ilya's impact was felt almost anywhere he went. When he got drafted to the Atlanta Thrashers in 2001, he became one of the Thrashers' first ever real superstars. But it was when he was traded 3 years later to New Jersey when Kovalchuk really took his play to the next level. The dude was fast, and his agility, mixed with his size and scoring, made him a lethal threat on the ice. Now, let's go back to 2012, as Kovalchuk and the Devils would go on an unexpected run to that year's Stanley Cup final. And although they put up a good fight, they would fall short to the LA Kings. Keep that in mind as the story goes on, as after the defeat, out of absolutely nowhere, a 30-year-old Ilya Kovalchuk would announce his retirement after receiving one of the most lucrative contracts in recent memory, and having a shot at the cup, he left it all to return to Russia. Many still think to this day that if he were to stay, the Devils could have continued to be competitive and have another shot at winning it all. But he left and never returned, to New Jersey that is. Throughout the next several years, many speculated whether Ilya Kovalchuk would make a return to the NHL. And finally, in 2018, Kovalchuk would make his return. Mind you, this was after he won 2 championships in 4 years in the KHL, so Ilya was now hoping to capture the greatest prize, the cup, and obviously the Devils weren't as good as they once were. So after screwing over New Jersey once, he would do so again when he stated he didn't want to return to the Devils. Kovalchuk would then follow up that decision with another one, signing a 3-year deal with the team that took his Devils down in 2012, the Los Angeles Kings. At this point, there was too much salt in the fans' wounds, and similar to Tavares, in Kovalchuk's first game back in the Prudential Center, he would be showered in booze and chants galore. Kovalchuk may have been back, but he wasn't as good as he once was, and would bounce around numerous teams before eventually returning back to Russia for a second time. To this day, the Devils have only returned once to the playoffs since Kovalchuk's departure, and they would lose out in 5 games to the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round. Kovalchuk's departure set the Devils up for a dark rebuilding period that some can argue is still in effect as of today. Maybe this time, Ilya will actually keep his word and stay in Russia. We previously talked about how Brian McCabe was one of the biggest scapegoats for Leafs fans during the 2000s, but no player was as big as a scapegoat than Patrice Brisebois during his time in Montreal. When the Habs won the Cup in 1993, Brisebois and the Habs D-Corps looked outstanding. Their transitioning was great, and they were on lock. Brisebois' contract was set to expire that off-season, and fans were hoping he could stay around to solidify the bottom half of the D-Corps. But management thought differently of Patrice, paying Brisebois $4 million for the next 4 years, giving him top D pairing money. So, with this new contract came new expectations, and because of it, it exposed the type of player Patrice really was. Soon, Brisebois was playing top 2 minutes, and it exposed his lack of defensive awareness pretty quickly. Fans would give him the nickname Breeze-By, as the opposition was able to out-hustle Brisebois, making him fall behind on the play. It also didn't help that he didn't have the offensive touch to back him up either, making Brisebois become Montreal's scapegoat whenever the team was playing poorly, which was essentially all the time, as the late 90s Montreal Canadiens were a mess. Patrice would be so hated that he would be booed every time he touched the puck, and would even receive glares, chirps, and even throat-slashing gestures on the streets of Montreal. Things got so out of hand that GM Bob Gainey publicly addressed those same fans, stating, quote, "We don't need those people, we don't want those people. They're jealous people, yellow people." Brisebois also on record saying it was one of the worst times in his life, even feeling depressed due to the amount of hatred. Nonetheless, Brisebois still wore the Canadiens' crest with pride, as even after leaving the team in the 05-06 season, it wouldn't take long for him to return 2 years later, finishing his career in Montreal, where this time, the hate had ran its course. Alexei Kovalev is one of the most skilled and dominant players to ever lace up the skates. That is when he wanted to be, however, as Kovalev is also one of the laziest players to ever lace them up as well. And because of this, it led to most of his fans disliking him and calling him a quitter. One main incident I'd like to point out further proves their statements. For this, we need to go to the 2004 playoffs between the Habs and Bruins, as after taking a slash from a Bruins player, Kovalev, instead of responding or getting right back up, would fake an injury, giving up on the play, resulting in a Glenn Murray game winner that would help the Bruins go up 3-1 in the series. This wasn't the first time Kovalev would fake injury either, as rewind to the 95 playoffs, and Kovalev would once again stir up controversy. Just 1 year removed from the Rangers Stanley Cup victory, and they would make a return to the postseason, and they'd face off against a young and upcoming Quebec Nordiques team. But this series will forever be highlighted due to one play, thanks to none other than Alexei Kovalev. Kovalev would fall, but would fake being injured because of it. While faking his injury, Sakic would score, but because of Alexei's flopping, his goal would be waved off. The Rangers would then come back and win the game, thanks to Kovalev's tying goal and eventual game-winning assist. Now, although this actually helped his team, it still supports many of his critics' claims that Kovalev is in fact a quitter. It's important to note that when discussing about Kovalev, it's essentially a double-edged sword, as he has just as many fans as he does haters, but his blunder in the 04 playoffs may have been his karma for faking injury in 1995. Add on to the endless rumors of Alexei being lazy, and is understandable as why he was hated by his own team's fan base. Speaking of faking injury, let's head to Colorado.
Sakic held it in, still held in, Ugonna shot, score!
Uwe Krupp will forever be remembered for his game-winning goal that helped the newly formed Avalanche win a Stanley Cup, but he'll also be remembered for something he did years later, which is why he's mentioned in today's video. Let's go to the 1988-1999 season when Krupp would sign a 4-year deal with the Detroit Red Wings. Krupp would be limited to just 22 games that year due to a back injury, and that was obviously devastating news for the Red Wings. But while Krupp claimed he was recovering from injury, he was actually out doing other things people with healthy backs would be doing, as the Red Wings would catch Krupp racing his dog sled while he was supposed to be at home. This infuriated the front office, who would then suspend Uwe and attempted to void his contract. While all this was happening, the fans were just as upset, as Krupp would miss a total of 2 full seasons, only to file grievance for the $8.2 million he was owed. After all was said and done, he would return for the remainder of the regular season, only playing in 8 games. Krupp wasn't very productive or efficient, but he would get his karma months later, as his Red Wings would win the Stanley Cup, but because he only played in 2 playoff games, he wasn't eligible to get his name on Lord Stanley's Cup. Krupp isn't the only guy in today's video who would be hated by his new team, as this final person's mouth made him one of the most hated figures in Denver. Now, we know how much Brad May is loved because of this iconic goal for the Buffalo Sabres, but just like Uwe, in order to find out why May is as hated as he is, we need to head to his time in Vancouver, March 8th to be exact, as this was when the infamous Todd Bertuzzi-Steve Moore incident would occur, an incident that started thanks to a Steve Moore hit on Marcus Naslund during a previous matchup. Because of this hit to the head, Steve Moore's playing career would be ruined, and Todd Bertuzzi would become one of the most hated figures in hockey for a very long time. Now, you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with Brad May? Well, just days prior to the hit, Brad May would jokingly state that the team, quote, had a bounty placed on Steve Moore's head. This wouldn't go well with most people, especially Avalanche fans, so when it was announced that prior to the 05-06 season that Brad May would be signing in Denver, May became instantly hated, and Brad never was productive as a member of the Avs, posting just 9 points and recording a -14. His biggest highlight of his tenure with the club was being traded away. The Avalanche should have known better than to bring a guy who was notoriously hated amongst the entire fan base, as May, even before making the claim, had it out for the Avalanche. Just watch as he attempts to get under the skin of goaltender David Abisher. Like many in today's video, May's proven that anything you say or do can come back to haunt you. The fans take note, they're not oblivious, and they're definitely not afraid to give a piece of their mind, as all it takes is one lie, poor performance, or lack thereof to turn an entire fan base against you, making you known for all the wrong reasons.